Hello, guys. Tonight, we are going to explore the fascinating and tragic life of Marie Antoinette, one of the most famous queens in history. Many people imagine her as a glamorous woman living inside a golden palace filled with luxury, diamonds, giant hairstyles, and endless parties. But behind the beauty of Versailles was a much darker reality. Marie Antoinette lived under constant pressure, endless gossip, political hatred, and eventually terrifying danger during the French Revolution. Tonight, we will slowly uncover what her life was really like behind the glamour. Marie Antoinette was born in Austria in 1755. She was the daughter of Empress Maria Theresa, one of the most powerful rulers in Europe. As a young girl, she lived a comfortable royal life surrounded by music, education, servants, and luxury. However, royal children during this period rarely controlled their own future. Their marriages were often arranged for political reasons, not love. When Marie Antoinette was only 14 years old, she was sent away from Austria to France to marry the future king, Louis XVI. Leaving Austria was an emotional moment for the young princess. She had to leave behind her family, her friends, and the only home she had ever known. When she crossed the border into France, many of her belongings were removed because she was expected to become completely French. It was the beginning of an entirely new life. Soon, Marie Antoinette arrived at the Palace of Versailles, one of the most magnificent palaces in the world. Versailles was designed to display the power of the French monarchy. Massive gardens stretched for miles, golden decorations covered the walls, and huge mirrors reflected candlelight through endless hallways. Thousands of nobles and servants lived inside the palace. To outsiders, Versailles looked like paradise. But life inside was far from peaceful. The royal court followed strict traditions and rules. Almost every moment of the Queen's day became a public event. Even simple tasks like getting dressed or eating breakfast were observed by nobles hoping to gain influence. Privacy barely existed. Marie Antoinette constantly lived under the eyes of the court. At first, the young queen struggled to adapt to palace life. She was shy, immature, and unfamiliar with the complicated politics of Versailles. Many members of the royal court criticized her behavior. Some disliked her because she was Austrian, while others simply envied her beauty and status. As time passed, Marie Antoinette became known for her love of fashion and entertainment. She organized elegant parties, attended masked balls, and wore extravagant dresses decorated with jewels and silk. Her hairstyles became legendary throughout Europe. Some styles were so tall and elaborate that they took hours to create. Women across France copied her appearance, hoping to imitate the Queen's glamorous image. Marie Antoinette also spent time in her private retreat called the Petit Trianon. a smaller palace away from the strict formalities of Versailles. There, she tried to escape the pressures of royal life. She preferred spending time with close friends, listening to music, walking through gardens, and pretending to live a simpler life away from politics. But while the Queen enjoyed luxury inside Versailles, ordinary people across France faced enormous hardship. Food prices increased dramatically. Bread, the most important food for poor families, became extremely expensive. Many peasants worked endlessly and still struggled to survive. Harsh winters and economic problems created hunger and suffering throughout the country. As conditions worsened, public anger toward the monarchy grew stronger. Many people blamed the royal family for France's financial crisis. Marie Antoinette became an easy target. Rumors spread through newspapers and gossip across Paris. People accused her of wasting money while the population starved. One of the most famous stories claimed that when Marie Antoinette heard peasants had no bread, she replied, "Let them eat cake." Historians believe she probably never said those words, but the story spread quickly and damaged her reputation forever. To many citizens, she represented royal greed and indifference. The political situation in France became increasingly unstable. The government faced huge debts after expensive wars and years of poor financial decisions. King Louis XVI struggled to solve the crisis. He was not considered a strong ruler, and many people believed the monarchy had become weak and disconnected from reality. Then, in 1789, everything changed. The French Revolution began. Angry crowds filled the streets demanding freedom, equality, and justice. The storming of the Bastille prison became a powerful symbol of rebellion against royal authority. Across France, fear and chaos spread rapidly. Inside Versailles, Marie Antoinette realized the danger surrounding the royal family. The people no longer viewed the king and rode. They were captured and brought back to Paris as prisoners. After this failed escape attempt, many French citizens completely lost trust in the king and queen. The monarchy now stood on the edge of collapse. The revolution soon became far more violent. Political groups fought each other for power, and fear spread across the country. Public executions became common. Anyone suspected of supporting the monarchy could be arrested or killed. Marie Antoinette watched helplessly as her world disappeared piece by piece. In 1792, the royal family was officially imprisoned inside the Temple prison in Paris. The conditions were far different from the luxurious rooms of Versailles. Gone were the golden walls, elegant gardens, and endless servants. Instead, the queen lived in dark rooms surrounded by guards and uncertainty. Her daily life became filled with fear, sadness, and isolation. King Louis XVI was eventually put on trial for treason. Revolutionary leaders accused him of betraying France and conspiring against the people. The trial ended with a death sentence. In January 1793, the former king was executed by guillotine in front of a large crowd. For Marie Antoinette, the execution of her husband was devastating. She was now completely alone. Her children were separated from her, and she no longer had any power or protection. The revolutionaries wanted to destroy not only the monarchy itself, but also the image of the queen. Newspapers and political enemies attacked her constantly. Cruel rumors spread everywhere. Some accusations were political, while others were deeply personal and humiliating. The Queen, who once inspired fashion and elegance across Europe, had become one of the most hated women in France. Her imprisonment became increasingly harsh. Guards watched her day and night. She slept poorly and worried constantly about her children. Her health slowly declined from stress, exhaustion, and fear. The glamorous world of Versailles now felt impossibly distant, almost like a dream from another lifetime. Finally, Marie Antoinette herself was brought to trial. Revolutionary prosecutors accused her of crimes against the French people. The courtroom atmosphere was hostile from the very beginning. Many people had already decided she was guilty long before the trial started. Despite the hatred surrounding her, Marie Antoinette remained surprisingly calm during parts of the trial. Witnesses later described her as pale, exhausted, but dignified. Even after years of insults and suffering, she tried to maintain some sense of royal composure. The result of the trial was predictable. She was sentenced to death. On the morning of October 16, 1793, Marie Antoinette prepared for her final journey. Unlike her earlier royal appearances filled with jewels and expensive gowns, she now wore a simple white dress. Her famous hair had been cut short before the execution. The transformation was shocking. The once glamorous Queen of France now looked like an ordinary prisoner. She was placed inside an open cart and transported slowly through the streets of Paris toward the guillotine. Crowds gathered to watch in silence or shout insults. Years earlier, many of these same people would have admired her beauty and royal status. Now they watched the final downfall of the monarchy. The ride through Paris was long and humiliating. Marie Antoinette sat quietly during the journey. Some witnesses claimed she appeared calm, while others noticed deep exhaustion in her face. The woman who once lived surrounded by luxury, music, servants, and endless celebration was now approaching the end of her life. When she finally reached the execution square, she climbed the scaffold and faced the guillotine. According to famous stories, she accidentally stepped on the executioner's foot and politely apologized by saying, "Pardon me, sir, "I did not do it on purpose." These were believed to be among her final words. Moments later, the blade fell. With her death, one of the most famous chapters of French royal history came to an end. Marie Antoinette became forever linked to the rise and fall of the French monarchy and the violence of the Revolution. Even today, historians continue debating who Marie Antoinette truly was. Some see her as selfish and careless, a symbol of royal excess during a time of terrible suffering. Others believe she was misunderstood, a young woman forced into an impossible political world she never fully understood. The truth is probably somewhere in between. Marie Antoinette certainly enjoyed luxury and expensive pleasures, but she was also trapped inside a royal system built long before she arrived in France. From childhood, her life was controlled by politics, expectations, and public opinion. Every mistake she made became magnified by millions of angry people searching for someone to blame. Her story remains fascinating because it is not only about wealth and glamour. It is also about loneliness, pressure, fear. After the death of Marie Antoinette, France continued to change rapidly. The revolution that promised freedom and equality also brought fear, violence, and chaos. Thousands of people were executed during a period known as the Reign of Terror. Many citizens who once supported the revolution became frightened by how extreme it had become. Meanwhile, the image of Marie Antoinette slowly transformed over time. During her life, revolutionary newspapers had described her as cold, selfish, and dangerous. But after her death, some people began to view her differently. They saw not only a queen, but also a mother, a wife, and a woman destroyed by political hatred. Historians today often study the enormous pressure placed upon royal women during the 18th century. Marie Antoinette entered France as a teenager with little understanding of politics or power. Yet, she was expected to become the perfect queen inside one of the most demanding royal courts in Europe. Every decision she made was judged by nobles, politicians, and ordinary citizens. One reason her story remains so famous is because she represented the end of an entire era. Versailles symbolized absolute monarchy, luxury, and royal control. When the revolution destroyed the monarchy, it also destroyed the world Marie Antoinette had lived in since arriving in France. The glittering palace, the grand balls, the expensive dresses, and the endless ceremonies all disappeared as history entered a new chapter. Even today, people remain fascinated by Versailles itself. Visitors walk through the massive golden halls imagining what life was like during the final years before the Revolution. Some rooms still contain portraits of Marie Antoinette wearing elegant gowns and jewels. These paintings present an image of calm beauty, but behind those portraits was a woman living under constant stress. Her personal life was also far more complicated than many realize. Although she loved entertainment and fashion, she deeply cared about her children and often tried to escape the cruelty of palace politics. Some letters written during her imprisonment reveal sadness, fear, and emotional pain. In her final months, she worried constantly about the safety of her family. The French Revolution changed not only France, but also the entire world. It inspired future revolutions and political movements across Europe. Ideas about equality, citizenship, and democracy spread rapidly after the fall of the monarchy. In many ways, the tragic story of Marie Antoinette became part of a much larger transformation in human history. Movies, books, and television shows continue retelling her story today. Some portray her as glamorous and rebellious, while others focus on her loneliness and tragic downfall. Modern audiences are often drawn to the contrast between extreme luxury and sudden destruction. One moment she lived surrounded by diamonds and royal celebrations, and only a few years later she faced execution in front of an angry crowd. Perhaps that is why her story still feels powerful centuries later. It reminds people how quickly power, fame, and beauty can disappear. It also shows how dangerous public anger can become during times of crisis and suffering. And as the candles inside Versailles slowly faded during the final years of the monarchy, the life of Marie Antoinette became one of the most unforgettable tragedies in European history. As years passed after the French Revolution, the memory of Marie Antoinette continued to grow more mysterious. To some people, she remained a symbol of royal luxury and wastefulness. To others, she became a tragic figure destroyed by forces far greater than herself. Historians, writers, and filmmakers have spent centuries trying to understand the real woman behind the legend. The Palace of Versailles itself survived long after the monarchy disappeared. Today, millions of visitors walk through its giant halls and beautiful gardens every year. They stare at the golden ceilings, enormous mirrors, and elegant royal bedrooms, imagining what life must have felt like during the final years before the revolution exploded across France. For many visitors, the story of Marie Antoinette is the most fascinating part of Versailles. Her bedrooms, private rooms, and gardens still exist. Tour guides often explain how she tried to escape the endless pressure of royal life by hiding inside smaller private spaces, away from the strict court ceremonies. Despite living in unimaginable luxury, she rarely experienced true freedom. One of the strangest parts of royal life during that period was how public everything became. Even the Queen's daily routine was treated like a performance. Nobles constantly watched her because being close to the Queen could increase their political influence and social status. simple moments that ordinary people take for granted, eating, dressing, resting, or spending time alone, became impossible for someone living inside the royal court. This constant pressure slowly affected Marie Antoinette emotionally. Although she loved entertainment, fashion, music, and elegant celebrations, she also struggled with loneliness. Many members of the court secretly disliked her or spread rumors about her. Because she was originally Austrian, some people in France never fully trusted her. Political enemies used this against her repeatedly during times of crisis. As France became poorer and more unstable, public anger continued growing. Ordinary citizens experienced hunger, unemployment, and fear, while the monarchy still appeared wealthy and disconnected from reality. The royal family became an easy target for frustration. Newspapers and political pamphlets attacked Marie Antoinette constantly, turning her into one of the most hated figures in France. Yet history is rarely simple. Modern historians often point out that many stories about Marie Antoinette were exaggerated or completely false. Revolutionary propaganda intentionally presented her as selfish and cruel in order to increase public hatred toward the monarchy. Some accusations made during her lifetime had little evidence behind them, but angry crowds were willing to believe almost anything during such chaotic times. Her tragic ending also transformed how later generations viewed her. The image of a once powerful queen riding quietly through Paris in a simple cart on the way to execution became unforgettable. People were shocked by how quickly fortune had changed. Only a few years earlier, she had lived surrounded by luxury inside the most magnificent palace in Europe. Now she stood powerless before a revolutionary government that wanted to erase the monarchy forever. The French Revolution itself permanently changed world history. Ideas about democracy, equality, and human rights spread across Europe and beyond. Monarchies everywhere became nervous after seeing what happened in France. The fall of Marie Antoinette and King Louis XVI symbolized the collapse of an old system that had ruled Europe for centuries. Even in modern times, Marie Antoinette continues to appear in books, movies, documentaries, and television series. Some portray her as fashionable and rebellious. Others focus on her fear, loneliness, and emotional suffering. People remain fascinated by the dramatic contrast between the glittering beauty of Versailles and the horrifying violence of the Revolution. Perhaps the reason her story still feels so powerful is because it reflects something deeply human. Behind the royal title, expensive gowns, diamonds, and giant hairstyles was still a person trying to survive inside an extremely dangerous world. She experienced pressure, fear, criticism, heartbreak, and uncertainty, just like ordinary people, although on a much larger public stage. Her life also serves as a reminder of how quickly society can change during times of crisis. Wealth and power may appear permanent, but history often moves unexpectedly. The royal family once seemed untouchable, yet within only a few years their entire world vanished forever. Today, when people think about Marie Antoinette, they often imagine glamour and luxury. They picture massive ballroom celebrations, sparkling jewelry, elegant gardens, and beautiful royal fashion. But the deeper story is far darker than the glamorous image suggests. It is a story about loneliness hidden behind beauty, fear hidden behind hate.